Whether you love Star Wars or Sesame Street, Labyrinth or Ninja Turtles, so much of our entertainment has been influenced by puppetry. And that's why I'm talking to Adrian Rose Leonard today about the fabulous world of puppetry and how it takes us to new levels of imagination. Adrian, welcome to the Make It by Making It podcast.
All right, make it till you make it.
Make it till you make it.
Right.
We're workshopping it. Okay, sound off in the comments below. What should the name of the podcast be? Make it till you make it? Making it?
Making something. Something's being made.
And that's why we got to talk about puppetry today. Adrian, thanks so much for joining me. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your career?
Well, yeah, wow, the career has been varied and exciting. I started working with puppets about 20 years ago. Got started in Nashville, Tennessee, working with marionettes at the Nashville Public Library. Did that for about 5 years, and also worked with some hand and rod puppets, tabletop, things like that. And then I moved out to Los Angeles and started just sort of working. I worked for about 3 years doing like whatever came across my desk. You know, it was like student films, short films, a lot of indie stuff, just to sort of get it more experience, network, hone my skills, and also to sort of see what I wanted to do and maybe didn't want to do, because I do a lot of different things, which is beneficial in a sense of, when there's not work doing one thing, like as a puppeteer, maybe you're doing something like building a puppet or wrangling puppets and things like that. So,
and when you talk about puppet performances, this is one thing that I just absolutely adored, seeing you in action on our puppet thriller, Playtime.
Yeah.
And Playtime is about this demonic little sailor boy puppet that is going around and murdering a whole bunch of people because he's looking to build himself a new body. And I have never been so happy on a set than I was when you and I were working together on Playtime, and awesome. you had Robbie and Marissa assisting you.
Yeah.
And the way that you would coordinate and lead those performances with still trying to give an artistic performance, but then you're giving technical notes.
Sure.
So it seems like a big part of puppetry is communication.
Yeah.
So how did you develop that skill?
Oh man, that's a great question. I look at puppetry as almost like dancing. So you've got a dance partner, and dancing is oftentimes communicated without language. You're moving your hand a certain way or your body a certain way to tell your partner that we're going this way, and so I think that when you're working with various other puppeteers, you kind of start out very technical and like, okay, this is how the body moves. You also have different puppeteers move like I like to act out what we're about to do as much as we can, so that we physically get it in our own bodies what the character needs to do. And so then you're basically from there just running through the motions until it feels sort of second nature, and you get that muscle memory that you're doing with working with multiple people.
Let's talk about the puppet entertainment that shaped our lives. What were some of those first few shows for you?
Yeah, well, I'm going to give away my age here, but I was born in 1977, and it was like peak puppets for children's education, public television. So I watched Sesame Street, of course, Mr. Rogers, Captain Kangaroo, and then of course the Muppet Show was on as well, which was, more for adults and kids. Kids could watch it and maybe not get all the jokes, but that stuff was very influential very early. So puppets were everywhere. And then of course, as I got a little bit older, getting into the 80s, there were fantasy films. So you've got Neverending Story, Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, all these amazing films full of puppets. And
why do you think it is that with those fantasy puppets why do you think it makes such an impact?
My brain would be watching this movie and I would be like, well, okay, that looks like a real dragon, but it's not a real dragon, because like there was a part of me, like the logic side was like, but dragons aren't real, and so I was like, so somebody's made a dragon real, basically. I think it was sort of the magic of taking something that didn't exist in reality and actually making it sort of real. And especially at that time, the special effects industry was booming, and they were just having all of these advances in like, servo technology and things like that. So I think it was sort of just a logical evolution in the film industry that happened to be at that time that people were able to make the fantastical real. And I think that, it was just everywhere.
Right. It's almost like a gateway to the imagination, right? Because if you can believe in a singing frog,
Yeah.
you can believe that he's dating a pig.
Yeah.
And you can believe that he's friends with a bear and that they're trying to put on a show and save the theater.
Yeah.
Or you can believe that a girl has her brother snatched by goblins and she has to go to the goblin city to rescue him. And I also think that puppetry stands the test of time much longer than CG does.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there is something about the puppets underneath the lights. Like when you look at Gremlins or you look at all the goblins in Labyrinth, and they're all so unique and colorful, and they have their different characters and personalities. All of that stuff just builds for wild fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's nothing like a real object in space that catches the same light as the person that's interacting with it or the objects that it's interacting with. And, trying to recreate that in the computer, I mean, they're getting better and better at it, which is a little scary, but it's just another tool. But I think also what lends itself to that believability is the person connected to it, and it's like, if you think about somebody building a puppet, a lot of people might create the puppet itself, like the object of the puppet, but then like it's the 2 or 3 people that bring the life into it that you feel that connection. Whereas like maybe with a CG animated character, you've got a lot of hands in there, and maybe it loses a little bit of the character along the way. I'm not sure. I'm a little biased, but nothing against CG animation, but I think there's that human connection. And also like, I say this a lot to people about the place where the audience lives in that world, and how if you make everything perfect or too realistic, there's no gap for the audience to participate. Whereas like with a puppet, there might be some physical gaps in the performance that you may not be able to achieve a full realistic dragon or something like that, but it's that empty space where the audience is allowed to fill in the blanks. And we connect so much more, I think, with that, because it's not just being spoon-fed to us.
In addition to all the stop motion animation we're doing, we're also indie filmmaking, and we got a chance to build our own puppet movie, and we had Adrian on board. This movie is called Playtime, and it's all about this demonic little sailor boy.
That's me.
Matthew, what was it like to star in your own movie?
That's pretty great. Not enough good crafty, though, I'll say that.
Oh, come on, but I got
He's really
you
picky.
the fruit snacks you liked.
I know, that's true.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced on Playtime?
You and I worked together ahead of time to really try to navigate any possible difficulties. So it wasn't terribly difficult, so that's great. And I had an awesome team. Robbie was super helpful, helping to get things rigged and stuff. So we had very minimal difficulties, honestly. Matthew's got this rod that comes out of the back of his head that is adjustable. So that was helpful when we had to get into sort of more awkward places. Like if he's sitting on the couch, we could bring this rod up and operate that way. Then I think at one point I'm hidden behind a chair and I'm operating them that way. That was probably the most difficult, was just cramming myself into that corner.
Oh, right.
But
that's the thing people don't think about with puppetry is, where do you hide the puppeteers?
Yeah.
And on TV shows, they're building the set around you.
Often so, yeah. And it depends on the show. Sometimes, like for Crank Yankers, everything was raised sets because all puppeteers were standing. Finding a place to be out of the shot, but still be able to operate. That's a little challenging. And then, certain particular moves that Matthew had to attempt, like climbing the doorway.
Climbing the doorway. That was something that you orchestrated beautifully.
Well, thanks.
And I know there was a bunch of practice that we were doing, right?
Yeah.
Beforehand. And I think that was the other thing is we made sure to schedule our day to make the toughest shots right up at the front.
Yeah.
So it's like we had some practice. We found ways to shoot B-roll and around so that by the time you were ready to go, you could, even though we had the rehearsals, there were still some things we had to dial in, right?
Totally,
The rhythm of the camera move.
Yeah. It's a very technical situation filming puppets because, like you were mentioning, like whether or not you need plates in order to then in post get rid of rods and or puppeteers, and making sure you've covered all of your bases so that you don't get into post and then discover, oh my gosh, we missed this, or we should have shot this extra footage, or and editing is your best friend with puppets because you can make it look like a puppet can do amazing things that it can't do just by getting enough coverage and
you were also like really, really good about collaborating with me on the shot list beforehand too.
Oh yeah.
Because we were talking about like, oh, okay, with this, we could do this kind of move, like for when he grabs the knife.
Yeah.
Right? Like how do we make it grab the knife?
With these tiny hands.
Yeah, with tiny hands. These tiny hands that don't grab,
articulate.
right?
Yeah.
And it was like we were able to find workarounds to be able to do those things. And some of these shots, Adrian, like people that I've shown this trailer to, people are astounded.
That's great.
And with the puppetry rods taken out, it actually makes Matthew feel more alive.
Yeah. When it works, it works, and it's like, we nailed it. And those are those rewarding moments too. It's like when it works, you're like, yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're
He's
like,
crawling up
yes.
the wall in the doorway through the way he's moving that knife through the smoke, through that haze, and there's light beams coming out behind him. It's like it's chef's kiss.
It's fun.
Like so beautiful.
Yeah.
And hopefully Matthew will be coming to a big screen near you.
What?
So what do you think is scarier, clowns or dolls?
Definitely dolls.
What about you guys at home? Are you more afraid of clowns or dolls? Sound off in the comments below. But Adrian, you were telling me a little bit about that you were scarred by a doll movie.
I was. So when I was a kid, I remember a movie called Dead of Night was on. I didn't know what this film was, but it was an old black and white British horror anthology. And all I know is that when I looked at the TV screen, there was like a ventriloquist dummy who was in the process of coming to life and sort of, doing away with different people. But I think what was so bizarre about it that really clicked in my brain was that they would switch from a doll or a dummy to a little person in a costume that looked like the dummy. Mm-hmm. So when it came to life, it was like it was a real person in there, but I didn't make that connection. So I thought this thing was actually coming to life and
it's coming to kill you.
Yeah, and so it just like stuck in my head, and I had a fear of dolls actually, especially ventriloquist dummies. Mm-hmm. For many, many years after that.
Pretty natural.
Yeah, and it's still bizarre that I also became a puppeteer because, I obviously had to get over.
Maybe you're trying to take back control.
Exactly. Literally. Who knew? I'm sure if I talked to my therapist, we could really dig into that.
And who is like cut to Adrian on the couch in her therapist's office, and it's another puppet that you're talking to.
Exactly.
It's like this snake eating its own tail.
Yes.
Tons of clowns in horror movies like Pennywise. Mm-hmm. But also like you got Chucky.
Chucky, man. Chucky is legendary too. Like I was just thinking about this the other day. We were finishing up watching the Chucky TV show, and the longevity of that character is amazing.
And he's gone through phases too, right? Yeah. He's been like the evil guy. Now he's more of the jokester. Right?
Yeah. And there's a nice Chucky too in this show. I love that it puts a lot of people to work too. That's great. Yeah. I would love to get on that show.
I know.
If anybody from that show is watching,
hire Adrian for Chucky.
Chucky. Oh, he's got a special place in my heart. There's a lot of killer doll movies.
Okay, I got a doll. I guess I have my doll story is fucking sad, man. I don't know if anybody wants to hear my doll story anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's so much. Yeah, you want to hear it?
You should tell it.
Okay.
You should
All
tell
right.
your sad doll story.
Okay, you guys asked for a sad doll story. So for me, Adrian, the inspiration for me writing Playtime was the first gift that I ever gave my mom was a little boy in a sailor suit and it was organized by my sister, Leslie. She was a few years older than me. She's like, oh, hey, we're save up our money. We're going to get mom this special porcelain doll. And we got her this porcelain doll. It's in a sailor suit and he looks like a little psychopath. And we gave it to my mom and she's like, oh, thank you. And then she started getting a curio cabinet. And then every year, her doll collection would get a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger. But my sister ended up passing away a couple of years after that. And it was after a long battle with multiple sclerosis. And that made me think, what would happen if my parents would do anything to bring their daughter back? And filmmaker Paul thinks, what if they made a deal with the devil to bring their daughter back? But what if it wasn't their daughter that answered? It was a demon, and that's why we have Playtime.
There you go.
But now every time I go back to my parents' house, there's more dolls. And there's more dolls. And there's more dolls. No joke. There's 100 dolls. The great thing about Playtime is the short has helped us catapult interest. We've got a producer on board, and we're now fundraising to make Playtime a larger feature.
Nice.
And that I cannot be more excited about.
Great.
So let's talk a little bit about our top 5 favorite puppet films.
Oh man, there's so many. What you start?
Okay, for me, Gremlins is got to be my number 1.
Yep.
I know some people would go maybe Labyrinth, but for me, Gremlins is so incredible. They fit so many gremlins in all those scenes, like the bar scene. They're throwing popcorn and she's serving them drinks. She's actually trying to be a good bartender throughout that whole gag.
Yeah.
I think puppetry works best when the human actors are the straight person.
Oh, yeah. And not reacting to the fact that there's a bunch of gremlins around. That's just normal.
Right.
It's a normal everyday thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What about you? What would be on your top 5?
When I was thinking of what are my favorites, it was hard for me to pick specific favorites because I have to pick a favorite in a category, basically. So you're kind of like Gremlins in that sort of PG. I have a PG-13 category, and I think Gremlins is probably definitely up there. But there's also Critters, Ghoulies, stuff like that. All that stuff that really is in that same genre. I'm gonna take it up to the straight on horror stuff. Because, when I was about 14, 15, I started watching real, more horror films. And The Thing, I think, is one of, it is
yes,
beautiful puppetry, beautiful special effects, creations, and then just, bringing these weird things to life, just nightmarish creatures. And I think it still just hits that sweet spot every time I watch it. So then you've got in with horror, you've got Puppet Master, you've got dolls, you've got all these great other things. I love in the 1986 remake of Invaders from Mars. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I haven't seen that one.
It has some epic puppets that I think were built by the Stan Winston company. They made these really amazing creatures that are actually I'm going to have to put our little gymnast down for a second. They're one regular height human working backwards inside of this creature, and then there's a little person strapped to their back, which is actually operating the face of the creature. So because our legs bend this way and they're walking forward, but they're faced backwards, it makes it look like an animal's leg. So it has this backward bending knee.
Uncanny.
And they're so bizarre that when you look at it, it gets back into that how do they do that? And so just the construction of that and sort of thinking outside of the normal, like, let's just put a guy in a suit kind of thing, you know, it just makes your brain want to know, like, who designed this thing. So I think stuff like that.
And when we're talking about horror, sometimes there's a puppet movie that you might not necessarily classify as a puppet movie. Like all of the Aliens.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Alien films, those are puppet movies
Star
to me.
Wars,
Yeah.
right?
Star
it's
Wars,
like, yeah, would you necessarily say it's a puppet film? The puppets make a giant impact on believing everything, all that world of imagination that's set up.
They are main characters. I mean, the alien, yes, it's a person in a suit, but someone is puppeteering the tail, someone's puppeteering the face, you know, grabber thingy that comes out, the face huggers.
Yeah, chest bursters.
Yeah, chest bursters.
Yeah.
Those are all puppet movies in my opinion. That's why I kind of sort of subdivided like my favorites into you know, sort of styles, because then there's like feats of technical advancement, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit is full of puppetry. You just don't see it. It's completely invisible.
Is that because they did the 2D over top of it?
Exactly, yeah. So there's puppeteers in there, like making things spray water or moving and interacting with like Bob Hoskins. And so it's a very puppet heavy film where the puppets are totally invisible, you know? And then there's like other like technical feats, like in Little Shop of Horrors, for example, the Feed Me Seymour. Yeah, that whole segment, because Audrey 2 was so big, they actually like they actually shot it like 12 to 16 frames per second. And Rick Moranis is singing all of his lines and moving in slow motion, so that when they play it back, that giant puppet that you wouldn't normally be able to hit all those syllables and lip syncs and everything in actual speed, because it's such a heavy object, looks like it's just right there, right? I mean, that kind of technical stuff that's what gets me excited about the art of puppetry, because it's not just the performance of the character, it's everything that went into it to get it to that point. And I think that's what's so cool about it.
When you're talking about puppet performance, what you're doing is you're essentially an invisible actor or actress, right? Where it's like your work is seen on screen, although you're not on screen. Yeah. Right? So then the reward is seeing the puppet be able to do these magnificent things. Yeah,
yeah. I think there's something about a lot of puppeteers where not everybody, of course, but we're all very fine not being on camera. Like being here right now is a little. We almost did the whole interview of me behind the couch, but you know, and it's funny too, because like I'm also a drummer, and I always feel like I've sort of always been in the background, but performing and like wanting to be like out there and like the lead singer, but not quite bold enough to be out front. So it's like hiding.
But then puppetry allows you to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. The puppetry, there's a comfort in performing beyond my own self.
For those at home who are thinking of wanting to do, have a puppet on their film, what are 5 tips that we could give them?
I think first of all, it depends on like what kind of puppetry you want to use. I think a lot of people tend to go with hand and rod puppets because that's what we as Americans are most exposed to. But there's a lot of different things you can do. You can do shadow puppets and tabletop. But each one of those is going to create its own sort of technical challenges. What I did over the past like 5 years is create my own company, Little Wonder Productions, which is really to help people figure these things out, because I've had so much experience working with puppets in film that I've had to navigate all of these technical difficulties and challenges and questions, and how to, you know, be able to ask the correct questions so that you don't get into trouble when you're on set or whatever. Right. So again, depending on what the type of puppet is, like we did, I directed 7 puppet segments for a documentary called Louder Than You Think. And we decided to go all full body puppets because we wanted to be able to put characters in a set and stuff like that. But then that raises its own challenges because it's marionettes. So you've got to think about, where are the puppeteers going to be? How do you light under like a bridge where the puppeteers are, because we all have to get above the puppets and things like that. So So thinking about this type of puppet is the first sort of thing. And then I think going from there, you have to think about the physical logistics based on the style of puppet.
So like where are you putting your puppeteers?
Yeah, where are your puppeteers going to be? I've been on a lot of shoots where people are like, oh yeah, and then the puppet's going to be right here. And then it's like surrounded by stuff and you're like, there's a human attached to the puppet. And people forget that there's a human attached to the puppet. So where's your puppet going to, or puppeteer going to be? Are you going to have like a raised set, or are you in a real space? And logistically, how do you get around furniture and things like that? Lighting your puppets. When we do a lot of tabletop puppetry, we tend to, it's very helpful to work with people who have filmed puppets before. And because like, let's say you're working with a tabletop puppet and it's about 18 inches tall and you want to, you're maybe on a green screen, but you have some practical sets and stuff. So you get all your lighting set up and then you bring in your puppets and your puppeteers and you find out there's shadows on everything because now there's a bunch of bodies blocking your set. So you have to take into consideration that you may have to adjust things once your puppeteers are in. So that's something to consider as well.
So planning, I'm hearing planning and preparation.
Planning, and preparation. And included in that preparation is like, I think something that's super vital is storyboards. Like know what your shots are before you even talk to a puppeteer or a consultant or whoever's going to be helping you create the puppet aspect of it, because what we're going to be doing is asking you like, what does this shot look like? Because that's going to help us understand to answer all of those other questions that we raised. So storyboards are vital. Writing for puppets. Some people will write puppets doing things that they absolutely cannot do, or they want them to do that action in like 5 actions in one take, So knowing how to edit around puppets as well. Like I was saying earlier, editing is your best friend. You can really make puppets do amazing things.
That's true.
I think I went beyond 5, but a lot of technical pre-production. Don't rely on everything being fixed in post. Embrace pre-production.
Yeah, we've got a saying called "fix it in pre-production."
Yes,
because that is where you're making informed decisions, and you're not just dealing with the consequences of everything. Get ahead of the problems. Find solutions.
Yeah.
Adrian, thanks so much for joining me
Thank you.
on Make
Thanks.
It Till You Make It.
Make it till you make it.
See you next time.